I'm asking for
Okay.
unanimous consent, Chair.
Well, I've heard noise on the other side. I don't think you have.
I
it.
don't know. We're in support. Are the Liberals in support?
We do not have unanimous consent, Mr.
I haven't
Brock.
heard anything from the
I have,
Liberal
and I'm
side.
the chair, and I've decided.
I
Mr.
challenge you
Brock,
because I've heard nothing
you're
from the
challenging-
Liberal members.
What are you challenging my hearing?
Yes, I am.
The fight for freedom of religion continues today in another 8-hour marathon at committee. But while MPs battle over fundamental rights, new polling shows Canadians quietly slipping away from the Liberals. The irony is hard to ignore. They are doing exactly what Mark Carney told them to do. Let's take a look. So folks, this is live footage at the time of this recording of the Conservatives in the Justice Committee fighting extremely hard for the right to practice religion without the fear of prosecution. And they are pulling every trick in the book out and using a lot of tactics that folks on previous streams have lambasted the Liberals for doing. They are using point of orders after point of orders, motions, filibustering, everything. And as we said, this is going to occur on both sides of the aisle, and those tools are there for parties to try to use at their disposal when they're fighting against something they don't necessarily like. The difference here is, in our opinion, this is about fundamental rights of Canadians, not a parliamentary investigation into a Arrive-Can or something else. So when it comes to the tactics, it seems to be the case. When your team's using them, it's okay. When the other team's using them, it's not. But just objectively speaking, this is why these tactics have to be there for both sides of the aisle to actually use them. Beside the point, let's take a look at some of the tactics that they were actually employing today in the first couple hours of this marathon.
Catholic bishops that I intend on reading the exact message, the exact letter that was sent to Prime Minister Carney into the record during another intervention later on, Chair. But there's a quote here. Catholic bishops, for example, this week wrote a letter seeking reassurance from Prime Minister Carney that expressing good faith religious opinions will not be grounds for hate speech prosecution. That fear is particularly acute in light of the proposed Liberal amendment to remove the requirement that criminal hate speech prosecutions have the explicit sign-off of the Provincial Attorney General. This requirement adds a layer of political accountability to this most controversial type of criminal prosecution. As it stands now, if a provincial crown wanted to lay this charge, the governing party had to at least wear the effort and openly endorse it. So that's what I intend on reading out in relation to that particular article, Mr. Chair. And at this time, I wish to move a sub-amendment to my colleague Mr. Lawton's amendment, and the sub-amendment to read as follows: to move to replace freedom of expression or the freedom of religion with A, freedom of conscience and religion, B, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication, C, freedom of peaceful assembly, and D, freedom of association. And I wish to move on to a vote, as this is a dilatory motion.
It's not a dilatory motion. Plus, I would like to see a hard copy of that so all the members can consider it. I assume you have it in writing?
Not yet, but it's coming.
Okay, so we'll suspend in the interim.
So, after a while of continued debate, continued attempts by the Conservatives to shift the focus of committee from C9 to C14, you know, the Bail Reform Act, actually stop violent criminals from being let out on the streets. No, we have to be debating on this Bill C9. So this is an interesting tactic, because right after the Liberals and the Bloc voted on passing this controversial amendment that would remove the legal defense from religions to actually be prosecuted for what's in their belief system, Andrew Lawton introduced an amendment to try to put that protection back in. And after speaker upon speaker upon speaker upon speaker, Larry Brock has introduced a sub-amendment to that amendment, and he's clarifying some of the terminology that was in Mr. Lawton's amendment. So this is very similar to the tactics that the Conservatives were using to grind up the House in the fall, if you recall, when it was speaker after speaker after speaker speaking during the debate of the never-ending question of privilege regarding the SDTC documents. So whenever you introduce an amendment, a whole new speakers list gets to be presented, and you get to continue talking, right? So you can continue that, and as long as you keep introducing amendments, it resets all of the speakers, so you can continue to have people speaking on this, and you could effectively stall this out indefinitely. Now, the Conservatives are not making it easy on James Maloney, and I don't blame them, because this is a chair who has chosen not to follow the rules, who has chosen not to acknowledge questions of privilege and rule on them when he's supposed to. So I don't blame them for doing this. When your chair isn't even following the rules, I really don't blame any party, regardless of who it is, when they're using these filibustering tactics and when they're trying to make life miserable for the chair, especially when the chair is acting all flippantly. So they went for a break, and this is what happened after they came back.
Thank you, Chair. With respect to Mr. Brock's sub-amendment, I think it's clear that there is a lot of divisiveness surrounding C9, a lot of complexity. The fact that we now have a sub-amendment on the table, I think, reinforces that this committee should be dealing with far more pressing priorities. I move that the committee now proceed to the consideration of Bill C-14, the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act.
We have dealt with that, ruled on it at least twice today.
Point of order.
So we're not going to do it again.
Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Lawton.
We are now on a sub-amendment. The context in which this discussion arises is entirely different now. I don't think you should be blocking your own Liberal colleagues from allowing them to move their bail legislation forward.
So let me get this straight. Your sub-amendment makes it less important to deal with the legislation we're dealing with, just to be clear?
The sub-amendment
okay,
shows
I got it. Anyway, I've made my ruling. That's final. Challenge, okay, that's your right.
Mrs. Latencio.
I sustain the chair's ruling.
Yes. Mr. Osfather?
I vote yes to sustain the chair.
Mrs. Dillon? Mrs. Akin? Yes.
I sustain the chair.
Mr. Brock?
Against.
Mr. Barber?
No.
Mr. Gill?
No.
Mr. Lawton?
no.
Monsieur Fortin?
Oui.
Okay. Challenge failed. Mr. Lawton, you still have the floor?
Order.
Go ahead, Mr. Housefather.
He moved a motion.
Correct,
You lost
correct,
the floor.
correct. Thank you. All right, so we're on to Ms. Anstey then. Yes, Mr. Brock.
Seeking unanimous consent that the committee now proceed to the consideration of Bill C-14, the Bail and Sentencing Reform
That's
Act.
not a point of order, Mr. Brock.
I'm asking for
okay.
unanimous consent, Chair.
Well, I've heard noise on the other side. I don't think you have. it.
I
So
don't know. We're in support. Are the Liberals in support?
We do not have unanimous consent, Mr. Brock.
I haven't heard anything from the Liberal
I have, and I'm
side.
the chair, and I've decided.
I
Mr.
challenge
Brock,
you because I've heard nothing
you're
from the
challenging-
Liberal members.
What are you challenging my hearing?
Yes, I am. I've heard nothing from Ms. Latanzio, Mr. Housefather, Ms. Dillon, and Ms. Sakan, who is subbing for Mr. Chang.
Well, okay,
I've
thank,
heard
thank,
nothing.
thank you. You've now,
member, the
you've
other
now
party.
listed the members. I heard there was no unanimous consent. We are moving on. Ms. Anstey, you have the floor.
Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Barber.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move a dilatory motion. I'm well within my right. I'm a sitting member that the committee now proceed
can't do that
to
on
the
a point of
consideration
order.
of Bill
You
C-14,
cannot
the
do that on a
Sentencing
point of
Reform
order,
Act.
Mr. Bauer. Ms.
I'd like to
Nancy-
seek unanimous
Ms.
consent to
Nancy-
study bail,
Ms.
please.
Nancy, you have the floor.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes. Well, you've got the floor, actually.
I seek unanimous consent for us to move forward on the Bill C-14 that's on the hearts and minds
Ms.
of
Nancy, I'm
Canadians.
sorry to interrupt you, but you're not a member, so you can't move that motion. You can
Point of
speak.
She's
order.
seeking unanimous consent, Chair.
She can speak to it. She
Point
can't.
of order, Mr. Chair.
Where's this one coming from?
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Mantle, yes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think if you will seek it and you listen for the voice vote of the committee members, you will see
Mr.
we have
Mantle, I
unanimous
can
consent to
take
move
these
to Bill
motions
C.
from people
Can
who
I
are
finish?
regular members of the committee. You're
Mr.
allowed
Chair,
to
I'd
sit
like
at the
to finish
table
my
and
point of order.
participate. I understand, but you're trying to introduce a motion.
I am not, Mr. Chair. I'm seeking unanimous consent. It is not a motion.
Which you cannot do. You're allowed to participate and make submissions on what we're talking about. Only the regular
I am
members
allowed to
can
make
do what
point
you're
of
trying
order.
to do.
And I seek unanimous consent. If
Mr.
you're,
Mantle, okay, the request is denied. It's out of order. Okay, Ms. Nancy, you do
I
have
challenge
the
your
floor.
decision, Mr. Chair.
Point of order.
Pardon me?
I challenge your decision, Mr.
You
Chair.
can't do that either.
I challenge your decision then.
Okay, that's your right.
So the Liberals in the chair probably came back from that suspension thinking, okay, now we're going to start debate on Mr. Brock's sub-amendment. No. Congratulations. Here's some chaos for you. Motion upon motion upon motion, point of order upon point of order upon point of order to try and move off of C9 and get over to discussion of C14 and challenging the chair on his ruling. They're making life absolutely miserable for the Liberals. And after the way Maloney conducted the marathon meeting the other day, I don't blame them at all. I really don't. So this is what you get. It's what you get when you don't follow the procedures of Parliament. Conservatives say, okay, that's the way you're going to play. Well, we're going to use every procedural tool in our toolbox to make life absolutely miserable for you, to prevent this this legislation from actually passing. And and the Conservatives are counting on the fact that the Liberals want to go back home on Christmas vacation. And if they can prevent this from actually passing and getting back to the House before the Christmas break, the House is set to rise on the 12th, folks. It denies a win for the Liberals. It denies the win for Shannon Fraser. Maybe causes his job to be in jeopardy. I don't know. And if they choose not to go on vacation and they want to sit there through the committee, the Conservatives have said, we'll be here. So they've basically thrown down the gauntlet. Like, we are going to make this miserable for you. And if we have to do this every single day of the quote-unquote Christmas break to ensure that religious freedoms are preserved in this country, we will do so. And if you want to gum up this committee to prevent any legislation from moving through and any other study from moving through, sure, we will be there every single day. So good on the Conservatives, because these are hard days to just continue doing this and talking for a long time. Take it from me, it's exhausting. So when you're doing it for 8 hours a day, every day, because who knows, maybe that's what it's going to come down to. It's gonna get really, really tiring. But that's what their goal is to exhaust the Liberals. So they're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. So it's a game of chicken. It'll be interesting to see who blinks first. And speaking of blinking, Mark Carney's probably blinking a lot now, because remember when he said that Canadians will judge him by the cost of their groceries? Well, that seems to be what exactly Canadians are starting to do. They're listening to their Prime Minister and judging him accordingly. And it's starting to slip away from him as a result. Check it out. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is an aggregate of all of the polls that have come in from all of the pollsters, where it be Nanos, Abacus, Main Street, Innovative Research, all of them. So this goes back all the way back to June of this year, and you can see where at one point the Liberals had a comfortable lead on the Conservatives, that is starting to really erode away. And for the first time, you're starting to see some Conservative numbers and Conservative polling results ahead of the Liberals. Now, you're going to get your your pollsters like Ecos and Liaison and those ones, which you can just throw in the trash because they're so ridiculous. But the one that we always watch is Nanos. Why? Because they're a reputable pollster and they usually lean a bit more liberal. So, what's going on with Nanos? Well, here's all the polls since the budget dropped on November the 4th. And what we've done is we've highlighted all of the results on the right by Nanos. And what those numbers are is highlighting the lead of the Liberals over the Conservatives. So what's fascinating is that despite an initial little bit of a bump from the budget, you see that the numbers have come all the way back down. And we kind of touched on this when it came to the media campaign to go after the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre and try to sow this belief out there that they're completely done, Pierre needs to resign, and the Conservatives are at rock bottom. That is not the case. Absolutely not the case. And you can see that the Liberals have dropped below the 40-point mark, and they haven't done so very often since the election, but they have here. And the lead is at a tiny 1.3 points, and this is from a Liberal-friendly pollster. And it's very, very interesting what that trend is actually doing here. And why is it doing that? Well, look at what we have. So this is straight from the Nanos poll information, and you can see that Canadians are becoming far more concerned and worried about the economy, jobs, and anything related to spending money out of their pocketbook. Trump relations and the U.S. has dropped like a stone. Now, the other interesting thing is that in all these cases, Canadians are saying that they prefer that the Conservatives to handle anything to do with the economy. Isn't that interesting? I wonder why that would be, especially when you have the banker in charge. But if you look at the trend of things, anything that has to do with federal spending and money seems to be going up across the board. Inflation, they don't seem to be that concerned about, which is interesting, and I think that's probably a result of the Bank of Canada interest rate holding at the 2.25%. But immigration's going up. You have debt and deficit staying the same, cost of living going up, freedom of speech going up, which is interesting, and crime going up. Now, Nick Nanos was recently on CTV and being asked about this, and asked about the number one issues, breaking that graph apart even more. What is the single most important issue for Canadians across the country? Carney said to judge him on the groceries. Well, is this a surprise that this is now the most talked about and most concerning issue about Canadians? Not for me.
Well, there's a new poll out today from Nanos Research that suggests the biggest financial concern for Canadians heading into the new year is the cost of food. Joining me now is Nick Nanos. He's the founder and chief data scientist at Nanos Research. Good morning, Nick. Great to see you as always. So let's talk about the results of this survey. Clearly, people really concerned about their grocery bills. Is this a higher stress point than housing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the highest stress point when we look at the national numbers. In the CTV News Nanos survey, when we asked Canadians about their main financial concern going into 2026, groceries was at the very top of the list, ahead of everything else by a country mile at around 43%. Then there was a tie for second place, Marcia, between personal debt and housing costs at around 17%, followed by job security. And here's a little tidbit. 8% of Canadians say, hey, I'm not worried about anything. I have no financial woes. So congratulations if you are in that group, but it is a small number of Canadians who have no worries going into 2026.
I'm guessing that those 8% voted Liberal, which is why they voted Liberal. But let's just put that to the side. So isn't that fascinating? The vast majority of Canadians are extremely concerned about food costs as their number one issue. And isn't it interesting that that is the benchmark that Mark Carney said that he'll be judged by? So is it a wonder that after the budget that says nothing about decreasing the cost of food or making food more affordable, that really says nothing about the economy other than all of these mythical infrastructure investments that are supposedly supposed to improve jobs and bring investment to this country in how many years? Nobody knows. As we said, even if this budget does exactly what it aims to do, it's going to still increase our national debt. It's going to still increase our debt servicing costs, which increases the amount of interest that we're paying towards that debt every single year. And Canadians are not going to see their food prices go down, and they're not going to see all of these magical tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of jobs come to Canada in the foreseeable future. It's going to be a couple of years at least. So this is where this comes down to. And Nanos goes on to talk about the fact that young people are concerned about everything. Well, why wouldn't they be? When they're about to enter the workforce, there's no job for them, which means they can't get a house, which means they can't buy food, which means they can't buy anything. So this is what we said when we said the budget needed to pass and Canadians needed to see exactly that Mark Carney is not going to be delivering anything. And the fact that his support is gradually dropping here, folks, and we're heading into the cold winter of Canada, I think these Canadians, these swing voters that voted for the Liberals, are starting to see exactly what Mark Carney is going to deliver them, which is a big old coal in their stocking.